My name is Matt Collins. My game is called Robo-Depot, and it's basically sort of like a game of Kinectified operation in which you have a character on screen that you're supposed to diagnose and operate on to fix that character being a robot. And basically it's set to use both the speech recognition as well as motion tracking to allow the player to interact with this on-screen character and get feedback from it depending on how they're doing or if they're doing the right thing to sort of assess and fix problems with various robots. The inspiration from this game came mainly from games like Operation, which you're supposed to operate on a generic character. My game was supposed to be based on the loose theme of a chatterbot, which is essentially a virtual character with which the player will interact. And I had to build a game around that, so Operation really seemed like a fitting sort of theme to work from as a base. So basically, at least in modern times, there's not a whole lot of opportunity to work with, robotics or with interactive media, to at least in a way that you could feel like you're doing some good on a screen or even in an interactive space. In this case, I really want to create an experience where a player can feel like they're actually doing something good with these various means of interaction and actually see the results happen as they work, especially in a sort of augmented reality perspective where you can actually see the tool where your hand's supposed to be and operate it. Whereas in a typical game, you weren't able to do that. You have to sort of skip over the mental gap of that is the controller. In this case, you actually are fully interacting with characters on screen and getting that one-to-one experience with actually doing some good, even if it is in a virtual space. One of the challenges was taking in the player's movements and actually making them part of the game, which is how the test function basically works, in which the robot animates according to the player's movements. Now, the problem with that was I very quickly ran into some problems with working with 3D, which I originally wanted to do. So instead I opted for 2D. But that doesn't really work well when the player is actually moving in a 3D space. So instead of taking just the player's skeleton as it's being tracked and mapping textures onto it, I instead decided to take the positions of joints and their positions relative to each other and scale and position textures based on that. So instead of mapping one-to-one textures being placed where the player is on screen, having them scaled and mapped to the robot's position instead. That way it makes the player feel like more they're briefly inhabiting the robot instead of actually just having it mapping to them. The Kinect SDK was actually relatively easy to work with. Once you have it installed and everything's really simple to set up as long as you know which functions you need to set up in terms of getting it working properly. And especially with the speech recognition, what I found was really intuitive and really easy to use and was actually really accurate throughout. If I had 2 more weeks to work on it, I would definitely add in a lot more sound, which I don't believe there's really any at this point in the development. I'd also completely overhaul all of the existing graphics, which I have to admit, as untalented as I am artistically, are definitely subpar for my work. I would also add a little bit more just in terms of variety, more types of robots to fix, maybe a couple more fixing mini games, just so much to add more challenge and also variety to it.